Recently in the funds we've been actually increasing our exposure to building and construction. We think that there is every likelihood of fiscal stimulus coming through in the autumn statement, and with that in mind we've increased our exposure to the more sort of nationwide house builders that operate at the low end of the market. I think one area that I'm very keen on for income currently is telecommunications. That's global rather than just being solely into the UK. It's a sector which actually has genuine top-line growth, which is actually driving dividend growth at the same time. I would be very cautious on those sectors that are perceived to be bond proxies. We've seen some very sort of big movements in gilt yields and indeed treasury yields recently, and with that in mind, I would be very, very cautious on further gains or indeed further sort of stretching of multiples within the consumer staples sector. I think currently if I was looking to invest £50,000 on an income basis, I would perhaps be very cautious on buying into sort of bond proxies, and I would certainly avoid buying into bond funds. I think if you actually can identify some high yielding sectors which are sort of available fairly cheaply, then I think at these levels you really perhaps can't go wrong with telecommunications, house building, construction, global pharmaceuticals. I think also offers excellent value. So there's plenty of opportunities there. I think perhaps try and avoid the crowded trades of tobaccos and the consumer staples. When I assess the current level of sterling, I think it's quite likely we may see a further devaluation against the US dollar. That's perhaps not really because sterling is perceived to be sort of weakening further. I think it's more to do with monetary tightening and indeed a renaissance in the US dollar, driven by the sort of strength we're witnessing in the US economy. Against the euro, which is currently priced around 111, 112, I think it's a bit of a false picture. We have constitutional elections in Italy later this year, and of course general elections in France and Germany next year. And I think the whole issue of Brexit is perhaps a bit more of a distraction. It's taken the eye off of these problems which still exist and are still unresolved within the EU.